Ladies and gentlemen, Ali Maxwell from the Not the Top 20 podcast is here. Brilliant show from you boys yesterday, looking at the running. And I'm glad somebody else calls it the running from 20 games out. But here we go. Do you accept the premise that the automatic race in the Championship will only involve 3 teams?
Yes, I think I do. I think that outside of Coventry and Middlesbrough and Ipswich, it's difficult for me to imagine one of the teams from 4th, which is Preston, to 12th, which is Leicester, putting together a run or a points return that would be enough to see them. They would have to basically be the best team in the league from this point. That's because I think Coventry, Middlesbrough and Ipswich have a kind of base level of points return that I expect, and potentially all 3 still, I think, have pretty much the highest ceiling. One wild card within that is Sheffield United. If you said to me that from now until the end of the season, Sheffield United would pick up the most or the second or third most points in the league from this point, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't tell you were being stupid at all. But they're coming from 16th. They're 14 points off second, and that's too much ground to make up. So, yeah, I think it'll be 2 from 3, 2 from Coventry, Borough, and your Ipswich Town.
At the moment, the third place projection comes in at a rather low. It's just under 81 points. Do you see any kind of surge where that goes higher, or are, for example, Sheffield United fans who scored 92 on pitch last year going to be looking at this going, oh, wrong place, wrong time? Low tide this year, Ali, for second place?
Yeah, I think definitely lower tide than we've come to expect over the last few years, where we've had, and maybe we didn't even really appreciate it at the time, but I think you could say we've basically had a couple of years of almost super teams. I think getting 92 plus points in the Championship counts as being essentially a super team at this level. And right now, obviously, Borough 1.77 points per game, Ipswich 1.76 points per game. Both of those are way off that. And Cov, there they are on 2 PPG, but kind of leaking a little bit, leaking some air. I think that whoever finishes second, and in my eyes, that could be any of the 3, I do think there is improvement within those teams. With Borough, they seem the least fancied of the 3 right now. There's this kind of perception of Ipswich, which started in pre-season. Frankly, it started 2 years ago with your promotion season under McKenna, and has kind of come throughout the season that at some point they will kick on. They will find a 6th gear. And what that will mean is...
Got to find the 4th one first, Ali.
Yeah, well, I'd say you've hit 4th, and I'd say you're moving into 5th. I do still believe, genuinely do still believe, with Coventry, because we saw that start to the season, so we have a clear image of how good this team is and can be, the way that they just blitz opponent. And I think they shocked the league basically with how they started, and not just in terms of the points, but the way that they played as well, and the relentlessness of their attack. But they'll need to refine that because they have dropped off a little bit. And I think Borough being slept on a little bit because of the change in manager, even though the start to the Kim Hellberg reign has been positive in terms of results, but could have been better had they not had that horrendous 4-game cold streak in front of goal. 4 games where they didn't win, 4 games where they had 80 shots across the 4 games and didn't score a single goal. But I would still say performance levels really strong, really impressive. And probably a chance to strengthen in January because of a few good years of player trading. I would like to see them make the most of what they've done in the transfer market over the last few years. The sale of Latterlath and sales of that nature. You have to end up enjoying the fruits of that at some point. And you should
backs the managers there, doesn't he, Ali?
He does. He does normally back the manager, and they'll be feeling very positive, I think, in-house about the appointment that they made of Hellberg. So, yeah, I feel like Borough are being slept on a little bit in this conversation. Most of the predictions I've seen, certainly George and I yesterday, but also on our NTT20 squad community, people have been putting in their own. Very few Borough picks in the top 2. And I just think that means they're being slept on a little bit, and I'm not really sure why.
Interesting. Can I just take you back to something you said about Coventry in terms of getting back to, it was 11 wins in 12, and you're totally right. I remember doing their game against Sheffield United, and the Blades nicked the goal before half time. And I've never seen anything like that. First 15 minutes of the second half from Cov was brutal. They literally encamped, not even in the Blades half, in the Blades penalty box, virtually. I do have issues with the length of time some of the throw-ins take to land in the box, let's just say, but that's not a Coventry thing. But Ali, are Coventry, is it realistic to even imagine they'd get back to that, or are we gonna need to see muscle memory, get the job done? I always remember Paul Merson saying he won 2 league titles and the teams he played in played well about 10 times during the 2 seasons, and the rest of it is just get the damn thing done.
Yeah. And do they have the get the damn thing done mentality? We can't say yes based on the start of the season, because even though they were winning games at an absurd rate, that's not crunch time. That's not where you are judged psychologically. We can look back to last season, where I wasn't that impressed with them in the last month or two of the season. And of course, their playoff semi-final game against Sunderland was incredibly tight. And frankly, they shot themselves in the foot with the goals that they gave away in the first leg, and clearly conceding, a free header from a set piece in injury time of the second leg. They will feel like they almost beat themselves on that front. But that's clearly still a question mark about getting it done in crunch time. Lampard, as a player, was a winner of titles. As a manager, we're still yet to find out. I think that's fair to say. And yeah, I guess for me, it's they don't convince me that much at the back. And that's always a little bit concerning when you're talking about a title winner or a kind of runaway title winner, because generally you want to be fairly confident in clean sheets. And with Coventry at the moment, I don't feel that confident. I think Carl Rushworth's shot stopping was papering over some cracks. And, if he has a little dip, which would be understandable, then those cracks.
Do you think their central midfield's a bit pretty as well? Could they do with some ruthless guy coming in central? Sam Morsey's gone to Bristol City, just in the squad. Could Coventry benefit from that?
Yeah, I mean, there's just pros and cons basically to every type of player, isn't there? And I think we shouldn't ignore the fact that Matt Grimes gives them the control that he does. And, there are lots of Championship fans that don't rate Matt Grimes. And
Really?
I kind of understand why, or rather think he's overrated and basically rated purely on passing stats, which where he obviously always stands out. But it's true that he's not the most incredible, like, one-man screen of a defense. I think the way that they play means that, you get the benefit of what he does in possession. I guess we might be talking about who you pair with him in midfield. But again, like, if you question the physicality of Victor Torp, which is fair enough, that's not the strength of his game, then you're ignoring the fact that he scored, like so many, half a dozen goals this season, most of them from 20 yards, which just have so much value in tight games as well. So yeah, it could be that the team needs to take on a slightly different shape. It's normal in the second half of the season that teams are a bit more savvy as to the threats that you offer, and they may play differently. And if teams just bunker in against Coventry and sit pure low block merchant stuff, they might struggle a bit more. Radoni's return from injury has not gone as planned. And I think it's fair to say that there are Coventry fans that are certainly questioning whether, Radoni's return from injury and increased minutes seem to have coincided with the team not playing so well. But I think it's fair to say as well that the attacking group outside of Mason Clark have also slowed down a little bit in terms of their finishing streak, Thomas Asante, Sims, etc. So I don't think there's one thing that you can point at. And I don't expect them to I do expect them to pick up points, probably less than 2 PPG from this point. So the door is definitely open, in my opinion, for them to be chased down. But I don't think there are a ton of candidates to do that. And that's good news for Coventry.
Yeah, I'm kind of with the word like competent, Ali, that a competent Coventry gets promoted from 2 points per game at round 27 with 20 to play, with the additions, with who they've got in the dugout. But I do remember Daniel Farker brilliantly explaining how exponentially harder it is to win in the last 10 games of the Championship when you're in a title race. Right, let me try and conflate 18 questions about Ipswich Town into one. Are the predictions for Ipswich, are they just follow the money predictions with the year one parachute and with the Hutchinson and Delap money? And does that allow Ipswich to negate what now looks like a ridiculous February with the Pompey away reschedule at the start? They've now drawn Wrexham in the cup, which means the whole game moves, and they'll have to go and play Broadhead and Moore twice in a week. Even if you've got the best resource squad, that's still bloody hard work. Is this a spanner in the works for my lot?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it definitely, there is a follow the money case with this. Everyone expected Ipswich to be pretty good pre-season. They haven't been as good, maybe, as we expected, based on the levels of the last few years, those teams that have finished in the top two, and their own levels from 2 seasons ago. I think there is probably a follow the data angle to this as well, where Ipswich's underlying numbers, that is things like expected goal difference, it does paint a picture of a team that don't give up very many chances and do, certainly at their best, still have an exceptional attack at the level, both individually, but also as a team unit creating chances. And I say that last bit because Leicester City are a very good example of a team who have some very good individuals who have scored winning goals at opportune moments for them, but the team unit outside of Jordan James 20-yarders and Abdul Fattah from anywhere on the pitch, that is not an attacking unit that creates chances as a team. So they're entirely reliant on those individuals.
Ali, there will be people saying, what is Philogene bending one in from the same
for
6 feet area of Portman Road every week as well?
Right, and Ipswich, this is why I think they're so significantly better as an attacking unit, is because they have both. That they are a team that creates chances, and they have the sprinkling of stardust on top. So I think there's a number of aspects to it. I mean, your note there about the schedule in February, that's very, very significant. I almost think it's better to come in February than March or April. So that would be me sort of taking the positive there.
Just as a general, it's a very nerdy, niche championship question, but come on, it's a conversation between you and me. When there is a low tide at the top of the table, I hear both arguments. That means it's a very good season and the quality is higher, spread over more teams. Therefore, you don't have, like we've had the past couple of seasons, 4 teams beating everybody, basically. And then I also hear the reverse argument of, well, it's not a very good season because there's less points. Well, I kind of accept both arguments, and I'm not intelligent enough really to present. No, do you know what I mean? I can't. You probably need.
I know completely what you mean.
Data scientist to actually explain it. Where do you land on low points versus the season quality?
I'm completely with you here, and I find these conversations really difficult, and I get frustrated because I can't quite work it out myself. The one thing I always want to bring up, which never really gets brought up in these conversations, is that the points return of the top teams, a lot of this stuff is down to the general quality of the division, and it certainly also comes down to how bad the bad teams are. There's only so many points to go round, and if the top teams find it very, very easy to win against the worst teams in the league consistently, then that's obviously going to give them a certain base of points to pick up. And my general take on the Championship over the last few years is that the intelligence level of the worst teams in the league, that water level has risen massively.
Agreed.
Where even the poorest teams in the league are not really stupid and they're not really bad either. Like, the level of tactical acumen, the level of out of possession coaching has risen so much that I think it is the average game in the Championship is just harder to win than maybe it would have been a couple of years ago. So I think that has an impact on how easy it is to get 100 points. I personally am such an optimist, Ben, and such a blind lover of these leagues that I enjoyed last season. I enjoyed at this point, it still felt like 2 from 4. And of course, Sunderland and Sheffield United drifted and had their own wobbles, which took them away. But we still, had some drama fairly late on. And around this time, we had some really exciting games between those top 4, such as the Wilson Isidore double penalty save from James Trafford. And this year, I'll be really excited and I will really enjoy it if we have the opposite, if we have a bit more of a bun fight where multiple teams feel like they're in with a chance heading into the last month or two. So, look, quality, I think, is really difficult. People generally just look at the top teams and say, well, there's not a load of teams getting loads of points, so that means the quality of the league is low. That's not necessarily how I see it. And when I watch Championship football this season, and God, there's a lot of it on TV, I do find the quality fairly good. I think the style of play, the kind of meta style of play at the moment is chaotic by design, transition heavy. Almost all the teams now want open games. There's not too many teams playing a back five and just trying to keep the score to 0-0 and nick a goal from a set piece, which is what we had a couple of years ago. So
I remember your shows, Ali, in the Corberon Cooper era, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just enjoying it. And I do think the quality is very, very high. And I think maybe we can be I'm guilty of this, we can be so insular that we don't compare the Championship too much to many other leagues. And if we do, we compare it to the Premier League, which is an unfair comparison. Even for the major leagues in Europe now, there's no point comparing them to the Premier League. I genuinely believe the quality in the Championship is now right up there with almost any other domestic league in the world. And that's an exciting place to be.
We can't stop football fans being cross because that's what football fans will do. But there will be fans of Preston, Millwall and Watford who are cross with us for not mentioning them. Let's phrase this politely. How much of a surprise, or who would be the biggest surprise for you to see in the playoffs there? And I know the market has actually bitten on Preston now, and they're accepting that they might just be a top six team.
Yeah. That's definitely significant. I think Preston's last month or two have gone quite a long way to kind of cementing them as not just early season fast starters, but really good football team that knows how to win games and certainly knows how to avoid losing them. Only 5 defeats in the league. Only Coventry have lost fewer games. I think that Heckingbottom is and has been a really underrated manager at this level. He's basically got bad PR agency. If he spoke a bit differently, maybe, or I don't know what it is about him, but like his record is so good.
Do you remember that Barnsley team that came up with Hourihane and Bree? They were class, weren't they?
Class, absolute class. He took Sheffield United up, with minimal fuss. He's got as good a record at this level as pretty much anyone, but it still isn't really considered like that. And I think right now, like it's very, very difficult to hang your hat on any of the teams from fourth kind of downwards because they are all broadly similar in how many points they pick up. They all go through good runs, poor runs. No one has been good enough yet to avoid, a run where it looks like they're sliding, but all the teams are good enough to put together a decent run. Wrexham have flown up the table in the last couple of weeks as well, and now absolutely have to be part of that conversation. So with Millwall, their fans haven't reacted that well to our mid-season predictions where we both had them dropping out. The -4 goal difference is kind of hard to ignore.
No one likes us. We don't care unless you predict us outside the top six, in which case we really do.
Yeah, and they make a fair point about the absences that they've had and how impacted their first team has been, particularly over the last month or two. But, Portsmouth will tell you, lots of teams will tell you that injury issues can carry on throughout the whole season. They can disrupt you for the whole season. So until we see a super fit, available, fresh Millwall first team doing as well as we know they can be at their best under Alex Neil, I think right now, I still back them to drop out rather than stay in. Whereas PNE just feel a bit more bulletproof right now.
And just last one on the top six. If I'm a sporting director of any team with any money in Europe, why am I not bidding for Imran Loser before the end of January?
Yeah, and the rest. I mean, Loser. There's a couple. Mama, I mean, Chakvetadze has come back and he's probably, Watford will probably benefit from him only just returning from injury. But God, it's good to see him back on the pitch. And he is just one of my favourite players to watch in the league. Mama's he's really come on over the last couple of months. Watford are one of my favourite teams at the moment. And, the level that they've shown, particularly in the last month, I think has been incredibly impressive and stand out, basically. The fact that they've been able to put together a string of really solid defensive displays, and we'll see how much Max Alain's recall for Manchester City has an impact on that. I sort of generally believe that coaching is more important than individuals when it comes to a defensive structure, and I think that they should be able to plug someone else in and not suddenly fall off a cliff on that front. But the fact that they've sorted out basically a midfield screen of big Hector Kyprianou, and then the players that they have in front of him with that solid foundation of Loser, whose long passing and vision and creativity is, as you suggest, just next level. Chakvetadze's ball carrying ability and his what we call attacking gravity. So the fact that when Chakvetadze has the ball at his feet, you probably need to send 2 defenders to him because one's probably not going to stop him. That then creates more space. And the speed that they have out wide is just unbelievable with Iran Kunda coming off the bench, Kwadwo Bar back from injury, Marma and Ince playing really well as starters in recent weeks. And then just 3 strikers in Doumbia, Vivaldo and Kieramgard, who all are broadly similar, I would say. They're all young enough that it's hard to expect consistency from them, but they've got 3 of them. So they kind of just flip between them and one of them comes up trumps every now and then. And they're just about getting enough at the top end of the pitch. So, yeah, we sit here right now. I'm just so impressed with Watford. They got absolutely thumped by Bristol City in the FA Cup. And they'll need to respond to that because, yeah, it's easy to just be led by recency and the teams that you've recently seen playing really well, understanding that with 20 games to go, we're still going to have 3, 4, 5 different swings here.
Mate, you just got me so hyped up about Watford now. I love your enthusiasm about. Let's just quickly go down to the bottom where it looks a bit more simplistic. I mean, obviously, there's only 2 relegation places to play for, and it looks fairly obvious and always has done that Norwich are going to trend up and away from things just because of size, quality, championship experience, good manager, higher now. Would you agree with me that Portsmouth, Blackburn and Charlton have all actually got good managers doing all right jobs, particularly Massinio and Big Val in difficult circumstances there. So is it one of those 3 going to get caught?
I definitely agree that they've all got good managers who I think overall in their tenure, you have to say are doing a good job. And I guess that kind of harks back to what I was just saying, that even the worst teams in the league, and you have to say they are that. If you're in the bottom 6, you can't argue with being called one of the worst teams in the league. But they all have good managers and they all have ways of playing that sometimes look, probably are the right way to play. And, none of these teams are none of them have like an inferiority complex where they're just desperately trying to nick 1-0 wins. Like they all have ways of attacking that I like, and they're all different. Charlton, it's very hard to stop them getting into your final third and winning set pieces or putting balls into the box because of the way that they play. So they always ask you questions in that way. Blackburn, one of the best quick transition teams. If you lose the ball against Blackburn and your rest defence, as it's called, isn't set, then they will slice through you. And
he's had a rough hand, Ali, Big Val as well, hasn't he? With
for sure
cancellations of games, Venky's generally, and injuries, and playing, kids. I did Blackburn the other day, and the right wing back was injured. They played the reserve right wing back, and then he got injured during the game as well. And it's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. I do. I agree with you. I think he's doing a really, really good job, and the league table may not scream that, but yeah, you mentioned the Venky's there, and I think just that word is a key player in the relegation battle in the Championship, because that sort of unrest and that lack of clarity, that lack of leadership and breakdowns in relationships between fans and owners, which can sometimes end up transmitting from the stands onto the pitch, that is a huge driver of relegations, basically, and we've seen it time and time again. They are the team that stand out as a red flag on that front, and so whether Ishmael's doing a good job, which he is, or not, that could still probably end up being a reason for things to unravel. Portsmouth have to just find something, and it can't just be one win here and there. They have to win a couple of games. Ideally, they have to win some away games, because they've got 3 more away games than they do home games left this season, and that's where they've been pretty poor and found it really tough. Their injury issues continue, and it just trips them up so much when you have Josh Murphy in your squad but not available. You miss out on having one of the best attacking players in the league. I don't have much hope for Oxford personally. I don't think that Bloomfield is a horrendous appointment, nor do I think he's a kind of silver bullet for survival. And it's partly because I don't think they have a particularly good squad, to be honest. And there aren't that many. How many points
would Rowett have got?
What, this season? I mean, the Rowett stuff for me, I think, being so close to George, my co-host, who's a big Oxford fan, I think probably it seems to me from what he was saying that the kind of relationship breakdown was such that Rowett was going to find it hard to kind of motivate the team to go again in his style. I've spoken to players in the past that played under Gary Rowett, and he's so out of possession focused that players, you have to be picking up points for you to have true buy-in, and they haven't really yet this season had a run where they've picked up enough points. And I think probably after a year of that sort of stuff, players probably do want to change and just try and get a bit more energy in there. So Bloomfield may provide that. But yeah, and Norwich, they are definitely the one that everyone just assumes is going to get out of it. They're obviously the team in this group that are in the best form overall. You know, they've picked up 1.38 PPG over their last 8. Every other team in this conversation is either 1 PPG or less. So everyone's in poor form apart from Norwich. They did lose their last 2 home games to 0. Like, I don't think they've quite shaken, you know, a weakness mentally that was certainly there under Manning, and I'm not sure it's fully gone yet. And that again is a bit of a concern. But they do seem the team with the most quality right now, and a manager who I think is doing a good job so far.
Ali, absolutely tremendous stuff, and I hope everyone can see the sheer enthusiasm. I love chatting to you about the Championship. It gets me probably hyped up, and we'll do the collaborator feature here on YouTube. So if you hit subscribe now, you'll also get subscribed to the Not the Top 20 YouTube, where, and we've only done a few spoilers, haven't we? Yesterday, you and George came on earlier in the season as well on here, so you can check that out in the archives here. But a kind of full predictions for the rest of the season, Ali. Do you want to give that a bit of a plug?
Yeah, and not just the Championship, but League One and League Two. You know, we are equally as enthusiastic about those leagues, I think it's fair to say, and we love the kind of uniqueness, really, of all 3 EFL leagues. So, yeah, mid-season predictions, because, Ben, we love doing predictions content. We know from the numbers that people like watching it and listening to it, you know, to the point where we wonder...
Do they really like it? I get yelled at a lot, Ali.
Yeah. How often are you allowed to do predictions before they lose all meaning? We reckon start of the season and then middle of the season is fine. So it's just re-predicting, I guess, and going over some of the stuff that we look to have got very wrong from pre-season, and just picking who we think is going to go up automatically, make the playoffs, and get relegated from all 3 EFL leagues.
Amazing stuff. Ali, thank you so much for coming on. I don't know what you're doing if you haven't subscribed to, you know, on Spotify even, or, you know, here on YouTube to Not the Top 20, and you're a Championship fan who's got 30 minutes into one of my videos. I'm sure you know darn well who Ali is and what they do, but do go and check out that brilliant work
I've got a question for you, Ben. Are you doing sorry to put you on the spot, are you doing a watch-along for the Friday night game between West Brom and... whoever West Brom are playing? Eric Ramsey's first game.
Ali, if it's Friday night, in my life, I will be watching West Brom on the TV, and I will very much be here.
But we are genuinely, me and George keep talking about how excited we are about this game. Eric Ramsey's first game in charge of West Brom. Obviously, watching Kim Hellberg's Middlesbrough is kind of...
how did you describe Ramsey yesterday? Val Ismail on MDMA or something.
Something like that. Yeah, that his Minnesota United team certainly played a bit like Ishmael's Barnsley from a few years ago. So that one stylistically, and also just to see, you know, to get the first sniff of Eric Ramsey, I think it's going to be really exciting. So I look forward to sticking you on alongside the coverage.
Oh, amazing. So thank you so much, Ali. And I dare say, I'll see you at Wembley at the end of May. God knows which 2 fan bases we'll see there.
See you then, Ben. Thank you very much for having me on.